Hi, and welcome to LCAL Low Carb Ancestral Living with Pim Jansson. Today we have a special guest with us, and her name is Mayim, and she's the founder of aruka.com, the Holistic Life Academy. And she's into naturopathic herbalism, holistic life coaching, that sort of thing. And she has had quite an interesting journey, I would say, that she wants to share with us. And I'm quite interested in especially how we can actually heal from plants, because we do talk a lot about the opposite in this channel. So welcome so much to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, when I first contacted you, I was like, oh, I can connect with her with the meat. And you're like, no, we want to hear about something else. We always talk about that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always like hearing where my guests are coming from, obviously, and a lot of them are coming from having eaten a lot of vegetables, and then because that's usually where we start our health journeys, and then they find that maybe that's not so good for them. But I know that you found similar results, but you're taking the best from both worlds. So I'm really happy that you want to come on this channel and that you want to talk about how we can actually use these herbs or plants to heal ourselves, because as I said, a lot of plants wants to kind of hurt us because that's how they are protecting themselves from us, but we can kind of use that to our advantage. So do you want to tell us about, if a short version of where your healing journey started, what got you onto this path, what were your problems, and what did you find along the way? So the floor is yours.
I think I'd like to start with, how, why I felt like I had a connection with you is, like you just said, like many of your subscribers have experienced, I had a terrible health crisis when I was trying to go vegan. And before that, we were vegetarian for many years. And then when I tried to go vegan, I started getting these terrible migraines that it was the worst pain that I had ever felt. I mean, I had 2 children already by that time, and it was worse than childbirth. And I did everything naturally. I didn't have any epidural or, no intervention. So I experienced the full pain and glory of childbirth, but these migraines were worse than that. Okay. And so I was like, they were just getting worse and worse and worse every single day. And I was taking Tylenol at first, and then extra strength Tylenol, and then aspirin and, whatever. And it's like, no, this is not it. I knew intuitively that I was not experiencing migraines because of my lack of Tylenol or aspirin or whatever, Excedrin or whatever people wanted to tell me to take. And we didn't have health insurance at that time, but it got so bad that I couldn't sleep this one night. And I just told my husband, I think I'm going to die. I need you to rush me to the emergency room.
Yeah.
And so we went to the emergency room, and I had 2 children at that time, took them to 2 babies, and we waited for hours and hours at the emergency room. And they took various tests and asked me a bunch of questions. And the nurse was like, finally, after many, many hours, she was like, we can't find anything wrong with you, but the doctor wants to talk to you. So I went to the doctor, and she spoke with me a little bit, and she basically reconfirmed what the nurse said, which was that we can't find anything wrong with you. So what we would like to do is we would like to rule out the possibility of a tumor. And the only way we can do that is through a CT scan. And she said, but, it's very expensive, and we didn't have insurance anyways. So even though insurance didn't cover it, it didn't matter because it wouldn't have covered it anyways. So I was like, okay, well, I think I'm about to die. So what's $2,000 if you're about to lose your life, So okay, let's do it. And so I took the CT scan. And then after that, the doctor called me up again after, an hour or 2 or whatever. And, that whole time, she spoke to me about 15 minutes, right, for that whole night, that one doctor. And she said, well, good news. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't have a tumor. You have a really bad headache, and there's nothing we can do for you. So here's some really strong painkillers. And I was like, again, of course, they were stronger than what I had been taking, and I took it, but it wasn't the answer. It was just not the answer. And so that's when I was like, okay, I'm fed up with this. This wasn't the only bad experience that I had with the modern medical system. But it was the last. It was really the last. And from that point on, I was like, I need to take charge of my own health and my family's health. That's when I started studying naturopathic herbalism. And I'd like to just explain first, what is naturopathic herbalism?
Please do.
That's a common question that I get from people. So it's made up of two words, right? And herbalism is basically the ancient healing art before there were any such things as doctors or pharmaceutical drugs or hospitals or expensive CT scan machines. There were herbalists, and their primary method of healing was through plants. But there's also, ancient methods such as fasting and, going on specific diets, only eating very simply, and other things. Even like, fasting, getting enough fresh air and rest. These are very important things, very basic things, but they're so basic that people take it for granted, even though they're very powerful in terms of healing. But, everything that has been traditionally done for healing would fall under herbalism. And of course, there's different modes of herbalism. There's Ayurveda, and there's traditional Chinese medicine. There's African herbalism. There's all different types, right? And the naturopathy, that word kind of encompasses everything else that doesn't fall into the ancient healing art of herbalism, even if they may include the use of plants. So that would be things like homeopathy, or things like, I don't know if you've ever heard of German New Medicine, where it's very like mindset based, and how trauma affects healing, and even essential oils. I would say essential oils falls under naturopathy because it wasn't as easily available. It wasn't as accessible back in those days, because just the processing of essential oils is just a lot harder. Yeah. So that's where I felt like I connected with your audiences, because sorry, back to the migraine story. Through my studies of naturopathic herbalism, this includes diet and nutrition, right? So herbalists, that's very foundational. And of course, food, except for meat and dairy, the other type of food that humans eat is going to be herbs, plants, and vegetables. So it's very much a part of herbalism. So all herbalists study nutrition. But what I studied isn't just, and that's the problem with a lot of holistic health and healing schools, is they push veganism, which might be good for short periods of time for some people. But really, veganism is an experiment. It's like a modern experiment. And I always like to say that there are no true herbivore animals. There's no vegan animals. Like even the animals that eat only plants, they also consume meat. Yep. They also consume feces from bugs, So the only historically successful, that we have a good record from of people who are vegan is a community in India who they may be vegan, but they don't wash their fruits and their vegetables before eating. So they get the dead bugs and they get the feces from the plants, but they are a traditional. It's actually good for, the protein, and they got the probiotics in there. I mean,
I'm sure
it's really good for them. It helps them to sustain that vegan diet, anyways. So I like to tell people that when they try to promote veganism. So I found out that I was vitamin B12 deficient, which means that it was caused, one of the reasons that caused my B12 deficiency was my veganism. And, vitamin B12 was great, for short term, but really we're supposed to be getting that from meat, right? And so I never became a carnivore, even though I have some friends that have done that and experienced amazing results. So although I'm like, I really don't like being religious about anything anymore. Yeah. I used to be a religious vegan, so I don't like to be religious about being a carnivore or anything. I'm like, listen to what your body needs, right? So, and then the other factor was I was stressed out just way too much, and that was also depleting my my B12 stores, and I was just not, trusting God, trusting the process, trusting that everything would be okay, So that's why both that and my veganism was hurting me. But through that, I studied herbalism, and I studied different nutritional theories and diet theories. And what the one that I like the best is the one that includes good, quality organic meat, raw milk, and kefir and yogurt and stuff like that, raw cheese and stuff like that. We do goat milk. My family can't really handle too much cow milk because maybe partly because we're Asian. I know Asians don't do it well with cow milk, but goat milk is good. But there are also, there are a few herbal formulas and just herbs, even individual herbs that I think everyone should at least know about. And something that's been really popular that I think that you were interested in from our call the other day was for cavities, herbs for cavities, specific herb for cavities.
Yeah.
And so I just like to preface this by saying that probably the pioneer of the holistic health and healing movement, one of the greatest pioneers of the holistic health and healing movement was a dentist. You probably know him, right? Dr. Weston A. Price. Mm-hmm. Okay, absolutely. Of course, your channel would know him. Dr. Weston A. Price. And he found that the cultures that were the healthiest were these native cultures that ate meat and dairy, and also foraged and ate herbs and plants, things that they could find in the forests and in the swamps, wherever. So, and one of the herbal formulas that have really, really helped me and my family of so many things. I tell almost everyone to take this herbal calcium tea. It's a combination of herbs, and I'll give you the ingredients. I'll give you the ingredients first. The exact formula is going to be on my blog. It's at arukah.com. That's arukah.com/blog/calcium. And then I also have another video, which is arukah.com/blog/cavities, where I talk, more generally about cavities in general. So my family, we don't see any medical doctors unless they're holistic. Like I have a homeopathic medical doctor. And it was really funny because the first time I ever met him, he was telling me all these questions about my medical history. I'm like, I don't really know the answer to these questions. I don't really have much of medical records because I don't really like or see doctors very much. And then he's like, me neither. I don't really like or see doctors very much either. But he was a homeopathic medical doctor, but he was telling me this. And I said, well, then why did you become a medical doctor? And he said, well, because my homeopathic teacher, even though he wasn't a medical doctor, he said that if I became a medical doctor, I would be able to practice more freely. And, it certainly did help him to do that. So anyways, but I only see him like once every other year, usually only when I'm pregnant or something that is just that eludes me that I can't figure out by myself. But I do recommend people to him, especially if they're too afraid to experiment on their own, which is usually pretty much what I do and what my family does. So I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yes, they were talking about the calcium tea.
Okay, so we also don't see dentists very much. So we do see dentists, like if my children wanted, like orthodontists, they wanted to straighten out their teeth. So we had to, I don't know of a natural way to straighten out my teeth, out teeth. So, so we do go for that, for just adjustment and placement. But I don't believe in the dental model of, okay, you have a cavity, which means that you have a hole in your teeth. And so the solution to that is to drill a bigger hole and fill it up with some fake stuff. And I'm like, how does that make sense? That's illogical to me. And I was formerly a computer scientist / engineer at the NASA Ames Research Center in Moffett Field, California. So a lot of people think that herbalists are like, they're, hippie tree huggers and they're not logical. And it's like, no, I'm completely logical. Like logic, I'm super logical. Okay. I was a computer. So that doesn't make sense to me. Absolutely doesn't make sense to me. Because you're still not addressing why am I getting these holes in the first place? And why are you giving me a bigger hole? Drilling that hole isn't going to keep me from naturally getting a bigger hole. And they might say, oh, well, we're just protecting you from, whatever. But it's like, okay, well, if it's not that bad yet, just let it grow naturally and just fill it up when it's needed. But I really both dentists and medical doctors, they really don't study the root cause of disease, whether it comes to, a chronic disease or even a toothache. It's kind of like it's a form of disease, a cavity, right? Mm-hmm. They don't study the root causes of them, maybe just on a surface level. And then they don't really know how to heal them. They're only taught how to mask symptoms, right? And so one of the herbalist teachers. So I have a school for holistic health and healing. We teach naturopathic herbalism and health and life coaching and online business and marketing. And one of the teachers that our students study at aruka.com is Dr. John R. Christopher. He's a late great herbalist in America. He's also a medic for the military. And I was taking like synthetic calcium for a different issue that I had with my muscles were getting knotted up and my joints would go out of place and I had to like painfully pop them back in place. And my husband's mom is a nurse, but she's also holistic minded. So she told me to take calcium for that problem. So I started taking synthetic calcium pills and it worked. And then as I was studying herbalism, I learned about Dr. John R. Christopher's herbal calcium formula. And I was like, well, I'd rather take an organic form of calcium than non-organic. And I was also drinking, milk and, whatnot. It's not like I wasn't consuming dairy or calcium. But one of the things in the herbal calcium tea that is very helpful is horsetail grass, which has silica. And what the silica does is it actually helps you to assimilate the calcium that is stuck in your body in various places. So it's not necessarily that we're not getting enough calcium, because, there's the not milk movement, and they're always saying, oh, how come they're always supplementing with calcium, but they're still getting osteoporosis and all this stuff. It's not because of the lack of calcium intake, but it's the lack of the ability of our bodies to assimilate that calcium. And so the horsetail grass and the other herbs also help with that. Now, so horsetail grass is one of the ingredients in there. And then it also has comfrey root. Now, comfrey root is a very traditionally, anciently used herb. It's been used for, traditionally, historically for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. But the FDA, unfortunately, has issued a warning against it. So if you buy Dr. John Christopher's formula from his herbal shop, for example, it's not going to have the correct formula. It's going to use comfrey leaves instead of comfrey root. And I have tried it that way, and I did not experience the same kind of healing and relief when I switched to that. So it is only when I use his original formula, which has comfrey root, that I experience relief. And so, but there's a caveat, the FDA warns against it. But for me, it's like, okay, if the FDA warns against something, it's usually because there's pharmaceutical interests that are preventing them from allowing people to consume it freely. It's probably a very powerful healing herb if the FDA is taking the time out to prohibit it. And if the FDA puts its stamp of approval on it, that probably means that it is so unfit for consumption that neither a human nor an animal would normally eat this thing. So it's going to require the FDA to approve it for a normal human being to eat it, because the animals won't touch it. and humans should be more intelligent than that. But unfortunately, we're so smart that we can also be brainwashed,
Yeah.
So,
just a question. What's the difference between the leaves and the root? Is it just that the leaves are not strong enough, or is there actually a different compound in the root that we get from the tea?
definitely both. There's both of that. So yeah, I think it's both that. And then and when you, if you go to the aruka.com/blog/calcium, there's a Google Doc that I link to from that blog that has a lot of information about the formula and comfrey root in particular. So you can learn more about that. But
excellent.
I do in 6 minutes. So I just wanted to say other things about this formula that are really, really amazing. So I had one of the things that, Dr. Christopher taught is that when his students started drinking the herbal calcium tea, that their fillings would like pop out because they started regrowing. And that's exactly what happened to me in a few months. And so my fillings popped out, and it was painful at first because it was exposed. But I was like, I'm gonna trust this, and I'm gonna keep going. And so I just kept going, and I kept drinking it. And now they're no longer sensitive. It is regrowing. But of course, there's other things, not just that you have to do to be careful, to help your teeth regrow. And certainly, having a good diet, especially, one that is free of sugar and stuff like that, and contains calcium from dairy. I think that's a very important part of it as well. But there's also minerals that are lacking. And so I do take a mineral supplement, and I have that in my aruka.com/blog/cavities resource that I posted on my website.
Yep.
And then other things about the formula, like I used to have this bleeding gums issue, and I would go to the dentist for this bleeding gums issue. And the dentist would always be like, you need to brush more often, and you need to floss more often. And it's like, stop eating sugar. And I was trying to do everything I can, and nothing happened. Nothing worked. And I didn't even expect the herbal calcium formula to help me with my bleeding gums, but it did. My gums used to bleed almost every single day until I started taking this formula regularly in tea form. Now, here's the thing is you have to take it in tea form. Sometimes people will sell a tincture, and I've tried the tincture, but the amount of herbs that you will get by drinking the tea daily will not match, the little bit that is extracted in alcoholic form. And I mean, you can, but you're going to have to be drinking a lot of alcohol, which you probably don't want to do.
Well, some people do.
But not healthy for you, right? So yeah. And then I had sciatica for many years, arthritis, and other people too, who I've recommended it to. They've had various aches and pains and issues, and will help them with that. And my son also used to, he started getting a bloody nose very often, like several times a week. And I was like, well, maybe this will help for him too. And surely it did. And whenever my children complain of toothaches, I just give them that calcium tea and minerals, and it stops. They stop complaining about it. So it's really powerful. I know we only have 3 minutes left. So.
We're not stressed here at all. No, that's awesome. So if we want the recipe, and how do you drink this once a day? Is that?
I drink it. This is how much I drink. I drink now that I'm not pregnant anymore. When I'm pregnant, I take more. So right now I drink a cup of herbs in a French press that will hold maybe 3 or 4 times. Like if I put a cup of herbs, maybe it's more than that. It's let me think, maybe 40 ounces of water, about. The cup of water. The important part is not too much the water, but the herbs. It's a cup of herbs every 2 days. So I'll make a cup of herbs as tea, and I will add manuka honey in it because it preserves it, and it's also very good for your teeth. Also, manuka honey. Okay. So I'll make that, and I'll drink it in a span of 2 days. Sometimes I'll skip a day, and sometimes I'll put the minerals inside the tea, and it's just great. I mean, when I don't drink that tea or take those minerals, my pain, my bleeding gums, it just starts coming back. So it's like, I need to drink that daily. My body needs that formula. And it's helped a lot of other people too. So
awesome. So I know that you teach all of this stuff to people that want to become health coaches. So can you, in like 1 minute, just tell us a little bit about the different things that you do teach people and where they can find out about that if they are interested?
Yes. So our school is for anyone who would like to become the healer of their home and their community and build a profitable online health coaching business. So it's very online focused, and it's really for anyone. It can be for like, for example, a mother who has no medical or health background, just like how I was, back in 2005 when I began my journey. But we also have, doctors and nurses and medical technicians and whatnot that are learning, from us, from me, from the resources that we teach, because, holistic health and healing is unfortunately not taught in the majority of medical schools, unless it's specifically a school for naturopathy. And there's only 2 good schools that I know of for naturopathy in the whole entire world. But a medical education is going to, something like that kind of medical education is going to cost, upwards towards $400,000. Well, you don't need an expensive medical degree, and you don't need tons of years of time to become a holistic healer, because that's what I became. I'm someone that, I have health professionals coming to me and asking me for advice on health and healing, and I don't have a medical degree, and I didn't spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this is absolutely attainable to others as well. So, and our website is www.arukah.com, ARUKAH.com. And right now we just launched a new free mini e-course about how to become a holistic healer. And it's basically a continuation of, this conversation that we're having and my journey to becoming a holistic healer and what I learned.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on. I know it was a bit short of time, but I think we got the most important thing out of this. And also, if you have any problems with your teeth, etc., maybe try this tea out and just head over to her website and check out the recipe. So thank you so much for coming here today.
Totally. Thank you so much.
Thanks.